Good evening, everyone. Hope is a powerful elixir for a coronavirus-weary nation. And tonight, the early success of a potential vaccine, the first to be tested in humans, is raising that hope and generating a wave of optimism. Scientists quick to point out there is still a long way to go here, that the results are preliminary, yet acknowledging it's an important step. The positive news coming as we begin a week that brings us even closer to the 100,000 mark of those we've lost in this country. Our reporting begins with NBC's Gabe Gutierrez.
The preliminary results are from the first coronavirus vaccine test conducted in humans.
Oh, I was so excited.
Jennifer Haller, a 44-year-old mother of two from Seattle, was the first person to get it in March.
It's a bright light for everybody in this country and across the world that we're seeing success here.
Moderna, the Massachusetts biotech company behind it, says the experimental vaccine was safe for all 45 patients ages 18 to 55. Data for 8 of those patients indicates they developed antibodies that neutralize the virus, potentially providing some level of immunity. 29-year-old Ian Hayden is another one of the first volunteers.
It's encouraging to see news like this, but you can't jump ahead and assume that we're at the finish line already.
Moderna also says a study involving mice showed the vaccine stopped the virus from replicating in their lungs. Now plans to launch a larger human trial in July, putting it ahead of the dozens of other companies racing to develop their own vaccines.
If everything goes to plan, that we could have a vaccine by early next year or even by the end of this year.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Moderna's announcement comes days after one of the company's directors stepped down from the board to head up vaccine development for the White House.
These data made me feel even more confident that we will be able to deliver a few 100 million doses of vaccine by the end of 2020.
Stocks soared on today's news, but experts caution that while the announcement is positive, it's only a first step.
It's the end of the beginning. Now we're going to have to open it up to much larger volunteer studies, and that always takes more time.
Moderna says it's investing in manufacturing capacity to be able to produce millions of doses if the next phases of the clinical trial remain on track. Until then, here in New York, the new normal includes circles on the ground in this public park to ensure social distancing. Lester?
Yeah, space, something hard to come by. All right, Gabe, thanks very much. Also developing tonight, the astonishing disclosure by President Trump late today that he is now taking the unproven drug he has pushed as a potential treatment for COVID-19. Kristen Welker has those late details now.
Tonight, stunning news from President Trump revealing he takes the anti-malaria drug hydroxychloroquine, a controversial medicine that Mr. Trump has touted as a potential treatment for coronavirus, despite limited evidence to back that up and research showing potentially dangerous side effects.
I happen to be taking it.
Hydroxychloroquine?
I'm taking it, hydroxychloroquine. Right now, yeah. I've heard a lot of good stories. And if it's not good, I'll tell you right. I'm not going to get hurt by it.
The president saying he has taken 1 pill per day for the past week and a half. And while no one recommended he take the drug, Mr. Trump said he did consult with the White House doctor beforehand.
I didn't recommend. No, I asked him, what do you think? He said, well, if you'd like it. I said, yeah, I'd like it. I'd like to take it. A lot of people are taking it. A lot of frontline workers are taking hydroxychloroquine.
The president says he has no signs of COVID-19 and tests show he is negative. So his rationale for taking it?
What do you have to lose?
For 2 months, the president used similar language as he repeatedly hailed hydroxychloroquine as an effective treatment for coronavirus.
What the hell do you have to lose? Hydroxychloroquine is a very powerful drug for certain things, and it's a very successful drug.
But clinical trials and research show the drug could pose an increased risk of serious heart problems or even death for certain patients. And multiple large studies in recent weeks have found no benefit from the drug in fighting COVID-19. All of that prompted the Food and Drug Administration to warn last month against using hydroxychloroquine outside of a hospital setting. And most doctors were only using it in extreme cases. Mr. Trump dismissing any potential side effects.
Here's my evidence. I get a lot of positive calls about it. So far, I seem to be okay.
Tonight, medical officials reiterate the risks.
The side effect profile for hydroxychloroquine is pretty well established. It definitely does seem to cause cardiac risks. It can cause incorrect or abnormal rhythms of the heart.
We have asked for more details and documentation, but still no response from the White House. Lester.
Kristen Welker tonight, thanks. And this evening, with 49 states now partially reopened, Americans are slowly venturing back out to stores and restaurants. But in some places, there is alarm over the size of crowds as the virus threatens to silently spread. Here's Sam Brock.
This evening, more Americans getting a fresh taste of freedom.
I think it's good for the mental health of everyone to be able to go to the beach.
As every state except Connecticut now partially reopened. In New Jersey, construction sites back in business, but gyms remain closed as protesters demand the state lift the ban. While tonight in Texas, offices and gyms are back online at 25% capacity. Michigan moving forward, reopening auto plants, as California's governor announces big news for sports fans.
Pro sports in that first week or so of June without spectators also can begin to move forward if we hold these trend lines.
In Florida, what leaders hope will not be a trend, a full-on flouting of social distancing. This block party outside Orlando teeming with 3,000 people. While in Miami Beach, it's a soft launch on stores this week and restaurants next.
But access to the pristine beaches here are still off limits for the time being. The crown jewel of a tourism industry that generates $18 billion a year for the county is bare with no reopen in sight.
Across the country, many restaurants and businesses remain shuttered. This Oregon woman opened her hair salon early, now facing a $14,000 fine.
I'm trying to earn a living because I'm trying to work.
Hundreds of churches also opening their doors despite stay-at-home orders.
You're going to go to Walmart, Target today? Let's go to church today.
But church has been the site of several recent outbreaks. In Northern California's Butte County, one infected parishioner exposed 180 people.
I didn't feel like the decision we made was irresponsible, and can I tell you, I still don't.
A fine line between civil liberties and safety as America tries to get back on track. Sam Brock, NBC News, Miami.
I'm Cynthia McFadden. It's the most popular truck in the country, the F-150. And today, for the first time in 2 months, they started rolling off a Ford assembly line, a hopeful sign for the U.S. economy. Ford called 59,000 workers back to 9 plants this morning, including the Rossonville plant in Michigan. Workers now face to face with a new normal.
I have to wait for the other employees to move into the plant so that we're socially separated.
A factory the size of 30 football fields, now with just one way in. Everyone who enters must wear a face mask and be cleared by this device.
This camera gives you a real-time reading of your temperature, and I'm good to go.
Adrian Price is one of Ford's top engineers.
This is an exclusive because no one else has been in here.
He shows us a watch that vibrates when employees get too close.
This would tell me any interactions that I've had.
The return is full of risks. Jim Hackett is Ford's CEO. Are you confident that you can keep all 59,000 people you're bringing back to work in the U.S. safe?
I sure am. In fact, Cynthia, what I know is we're ready.
Hackett says he's convinced after 1,000 Ford employees volunteered weeks ago to come back and make ventilators in this very factory.
And in fact, in the almost 10 weeks, no one came down with the virus working close to each other. Plus, we've had experience in Europe now, in Thailand, and of course already in China. We've not had one instance where the factory had a virus issue.
But keeping the assembly line running requires parts. Many of those parts made in Mexico, where some factories are struggling to reopen. The financial pressures on all the automakers to reopen is massive. Ford poised to report $5 billion in losses.
The auto industry is going to be completely reshaped. I think you will ultimately see fewer brands. You will see consolidation.
Who's most vulnerable?
I think Ford is absolutely vulnerable.
Jim Hackett strongly disagrees.
We have enough cash that if these factories didn't turn back on, we could make it all the way through to the end of the year. But no one wants to play that option out. We've got to get the economy turned back on.
Today, a first step in restarting that engine. Cynthia McFadden, NBC News.
We have an update tonight on our colleague, NBC News science contributor Joseph Fair. We have been reporting on his own tough battle with COVID-19. And tonight there's good news. Here's Kate Snow.
You look really good.
Much better.
You look much better.
Yeah, feeling much better. It was nice to have my first coffee and be able to taste it and smell it after 2 weeks.
Joseph Fair is back home, discharged from a New Orleans hospital Sunday.
Can you get out of bed right now?
Yes. Yeah, I can get out of bed. I can take the oxygen off for some time until I start feeling myself getting short of breath again. And then I need to come back in and put it back on so that I can get some air to my lungs.
Did I potentially take a deep breath of the virus?
Especially not outside. You need to come into direct contact with it.
The epidemiologist was with us as coronavirus was taking hold.
I'll hold it with a tissue.
But then Joseph himself ended up in intensive care with symptoms of COVID. Traveling the world researching viruses, he's had malaria 3 times, but says this was worse.
The anxiety that is provoked when you can't breathe. You know, you read these horror stories about people clawing at their throats. That's not something you experience with malaria, and it's something uniquely very frightening.
His fever is gone, but he's weak. He lost 18 pounds. He expects it'll take a month to 6 weeks to build his lung capacity. Experts say blood clots and the mental health effects of being so sick are also challenges.
When someone's released from the hospital, is there a sense for how long it might take to recover?
That data can really range depending on a lot of things, like how old you are, what your chronic health conditions are like. But I would say in a week to 2 weeks after you leave the hospital, you start to feel better.
How confident are you that you're on the other side of this now?
Now that I can take a full breath and have a conversation with you, I'm 98 to 99% for sure I'm on the other side of it. Boys!
His dogs are keeping him company.
One's camera shy and one loves the camera.
His mom checking in, and today even taking in fresh air from the seclusion of a porch. Kate Snow, NBC News.
Great to see Joseph out of the hospital. Tonight, doctors are sounding the alarm about a surge in deaths at home, not related to COVID-19, as so many people are afraid to go to the hospital. Here's Kerry Sanders.
Fire station number 2, unusually quiet for one of Fort Lauderdale's busiest. Similar stories in Fort Worth and Los Angeles. Why? COVID phobia. Paramedics report Americans suffering heart attacks, appendicitis, and other life-threatening emergencies are skipping 911 calls, fearful they'll go directly to the hospital, where they'll catch the virus.
You're afraid to go here because of coronavirus?
Yes, for sure.
67-year-old Daniel Allian released from Broward Health today. He delayed an urgent heart treatment for more than 5 weeks.
What did your family say to you back in March? What did your family tell you back then?
They said, no way, Jose.
No way, Jose.
His heart doctor, Ahmed Osman.
So the fear right now would be unfounded.
So there clearly is no reason to be scared of coming to the hospital because of these measures that have been implemented.
In Fort Worth, since the pandemic, MedStar says there's been a staggering 164% increase in the number of cardiac arrest patients pronounced dead on scene. Nationwide, the National Association of Emergency Medical Technicians reports a 34% drop in 911 calls.
And so we've seen heart attacks and strokes and surgical issues that would have been a relatively benign procedure or something that we could have acted on that are coming in too late for us to do much with it.
At some hospitals, fewer emergency room visits has meant too many doctors and nurses, resulting in, ironically, layoffs in the midst of a pandemic. Tonight, an urgent reminder, 911 not just for coronavirus. Kerry Sanders, NBC News, Fort Lauderdale.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.